She walked into the luxury bridal store wearing a faded coat and scuffed shoes. No makeup, no designer label, no ring on her finger, just quiet eyes that had seen too much. "Can I help you?" the receptionist asked, voice coated in polite disdain. The other customers stared, laughed, whispered. "She's in the wrong place," someone muttered. "Maybe she's here to clean." They didn't know who she was. They didn't know who she was about to marry. They didn't know the secret even she hadn't even uncovered yet. But in less than 10 days, every one of them would eat their words, because the woman they mocked for being too simple would walk down an aisle not just into love, but into a legacy worth billions. And what led her there was a truth no one saw coming. The day Lena met Noah, the sink behind the pastry counter had exploded. Water sprayed like an unruly fountain, soaking the faded tiles and scattering half-frosted cupcakes across the floor. Customers groaned and left. Her manager yelled something about incompetence and plumbing bills, and then stormed off, leaving Lena alone with a mop, a mess, and mounting frustration. 10 minutes later, the bell above the bakery door jingled, and in stepped a man in worn jeans, muddy boots, and a gray t-shirt that clung to his chest in all the right places. His name tag read Noah in faded blue ink. "Plumbing call?" he asked with a grin that somehow calmed her chaos. She nodded, embarrassed, and led him to the back. "It won't stop leaking," she muttered. "I already tried everything. Tape, buckets, prayer." He chuckled as he knelt, hands moving with practiced ease. "Good news? You didn't make it worse." "That makes one of us," she sighed. While he worked, Lena watched quietly. He didn't talk much, just hummed under his breath, occasionally asking for a wrench or a towel. Something about his presence steadied her. When he stood up 30 minutes later, the pipes were silent, the mess was gone, and Lena's heartbeat was annoyingly fast. "Done," he said, wiping his hands. "You might want to stay off the hot water for a few hours, just in case." "Thank you," she said, too quickly, then paused. Do you want coffee? It's on the house." He hesitated, then smiled. "Sure, coffee sounds good." They sat on the steps behind the bakery, sipping from mismatched mugs. She learned he had no family nearby. He learned she'd been working 2 jobs since her dad died. He listened more than he spoke. She found that refreshing. "You're not from around here, are you?" she asked. "Used to be," he said. "Moved away, came back to reconnect." "With what?" "Still figuring that out," he replied. "But this town, something about it keeps pulling me back." She liked that answer. Honest, unpolished, real. And so began something small. He showed up every few days, sometimes with tools, sometimes with just 2 coffees and a crooked smile. Lena never asked what he earned or where he lived. He never asked about her past, her mother, or why she winced whenever her phone buzzed. They existed in their own little world, made of laughter, shared stories, and walks under the stars. And for the first time in years, Lena felt seen. Not for what she lacked, but for who she was. So, when Noah held her hand one evening outside the bakery and asked, "Would you ever introduce me to your family?" she hesitated, not because she didn't want to, but because she already knew the answer her mother would give. And still, Lena smiled and whispered, "Yes." Not because she was sure it would go well, but because somehow she already knew Noah was worth the storm. Lena spent hours cleaning the tiny kitchen and wiping the same table twice. The chicken was seasoned just right, the mashed potatoes soft, and the candles, though cheap, gave the place a warm glow. She even borrowed her friend's floral dress, hoping tonight would feel like something close to hope. Her mother, Martha, arrived precisely at 7 p.m., heels clicking, lips pursed, perfume too sharp for a room so small. Lena kissed her on the cheek, already tense. "We're having dinner, Mama. Please, just dinner." Martha scanned the room, nostrils flaring at the peeling paint and thrifted curtains. "Does this man at least have a full-time job?" "He's on his way," Lena said. "He works hard. He's—" But the door knocked and her heart skipped. Noah stepped in, hair brushed back, wearing a crisp shirt and clean jeans. He brought flowers, real ones. For a moment, Lena saw a flicker of surprise in her mother's eyes. Then it hardened. "You must be the plumber," Martha said, voice like ice cracking. "Yes, ma'am," Noah said warmly, extending a hand. "Noah." She looked at his hand like it were dirt, didn't shake it, just sat down. "So, how long do you plan to fix pipes for a living?" As long as people need clean water, Noah replied, unfazed. It's honest work. Honest, she echoed with a bitter smile. That's another word for broke. Lena dropped her fork. Mama, please. No, Martha snapped. You invited me here, Lena. You wanted my opinion. Here it is. He's not right for you. You've worked too hard to settle for someone with calloused hands and no ambition. That's not true, Lena said, her voice shaking. He's kind, intelligent, and he treats me like I matter. When Dad died, you said find someone who makes me feel safe. Not someone who makes you poorer, Martha said coldly. Noah stayed silent. He didn't defend himself. He just watched, eyes full of hurt, but steady. With all due respect, he finally said, I didn't come here to impress anyone. I came because I love your daughter. That's all. Martha laughed, a short, cruel sound. Love doesn't pay bills, Mr. Plumber. Love doesn't buy houses or secure futures. I raised Lena to do better than this. Better than you. Lena stood up. Stop it. You don't know him. You've judged him since he walked in. Martha stood too, grabbing her purse. And you've lost your mind, chasing a man who'll never give you more than broken pipes and broken dreams. Either you end this, or you lose me. Noah reached for Lena's hand, gently, but she froze, torn. Her mother glared, her heart screamed. Then, she let go. Noah pulled back slowly. I'll give you space, he whispered, then walked out without another word. The door closed softly. Martha didn't smile. She simply said, You'll thank me later, and walked out into the night. Lena stood there, in a room full of warm food gone cold, hands trembling. She didn't cry. She was too angry to cry. The sky cracked open just as Lena stepped outside, the warm autumn breeze turning into a cold downpour within seconds. She didn't bring a coat. She didn't care. Her legs moved on instinct, one foot in front of the other, until she reached the corner where she knew Noah always parked his truck. He was there, leaning against the door, arms crossed, rain flattening his hair, soaking through his shirt. He didn't flinch when she approached. You shouldn't be out in this weather, he said softly, voice almost drowned by the storm. Neither should you, she replied. They stood in silence for a moment. The only sounds were raindrops and the weight of unsaid things between them. You didn't have to leave like that, she said. Your mom made it clear, he answered. She doesn't want me in your life. But I do. Lena, he said, his voice breaking for the first time. I've been poor long enough to know when I'm not welcome. I can handle insults, but I can't be the reason you lose your mother. I can't ask you to choose. You're not asking, she whispered. She is. Noah looked away, his jaw tightening. She wants what she thinks is best for you. Maybe she's right. You don't believe that, Lena said, stepping closer. We don't need her approval. We have each other. Do we? He asked, finally meeting her eyes. Because tonight, you let go of my hand. Lena froze, the sting of truth sharper than any insult her mother could have thrown. I was scared, she admitted. I didn't want to lose both of you. But you did, he said quietly, because you didn't fight for either. A crack of thunder rolled across the sky. The rain got harder. Lena reached for him, desperate to fix what had already broken. Please don't do this, she begged. Noah stepped back, and when he spoke, it was with finality. You're going to be okay, Lena. You're stronger than you think, but I can't be the man who tears you away from your family. I love you too much to make you choose. He opened the truck door, paused, then added, I'll always be rooting for you, even if it's from far away. And then he was gone. Lena stood in the street, drenched, shaking, but rooted in place as the taillights disappeared into the storm. She didn't chase after him. She didn't scream. She simply stared at the space he'd left behind, as if the rain might wash it all away. But it didn't. It only blurred the edges of the truth. That love, no matter how deep, sometimes breaks where silence takes root. Weeks passed. The bakery kept its routine. Sweet smells, tired smiles, and orders shouted through the noise. But Lena moved like a ghost between counters, her eyes dull, her laughter missing. She hadn't heard from Noah since that night. His number rang endlessly, his truck never returned, and the empty air where he used to stand pressed against her chest like a weight no one else could see. Then, one quiet morning, Lena threw up behind the counter. Her knees hit the floor before she realized what was happening. Customers looked away awkwardly. Her manager scowled. but she already knew. Later that afternoon, a test confirmed it. 2 pink lines. The world narrowed to that tiny plastic stick and the heartbeat pounding in her ears. She sat on the floor of her bathroom, back against cold tile, and whispered, "Noah," with a voice that cracked at the edges. She didn't cry. Not yet. She told no one at first, not her friends, not her manager, and certainly not her mother. Martha hadn't visited since the disastrous dinner, though Lena wasn't surprised. That was how her mother loved, sharply, conditionally, and at a distance. But secrets have a way of spilling, especially when your belly begins to swell. By the 4th month, Martha noticed, she came by unannounced, walked in without knocking, and stood in the living room with her arms crossed. "So it's true," she said. "You're pregnant." Lena stood still, her hands instinctively covering her stomach. "Yes." "And it's his?" Martha spat the words like poison. "That plumber?" Lena's silence was enough of an answer. Her mother's laugh was bitter. "You're throwing your whole life away. For a man who ran the moment it got difficult." "He didn't run," Lena said, voice shaking. "He let me go because I let him go first." Martha's eyes narrowed. "Well, don't come running to me when that child needs food or a roof. I warned you. You chose wrong. You'll live with it." "I am living with it," Lena replied, holding her ground. "And this baby is the best thing that's ever happened to me." "Delusional," Martha hissed. "You've embarrassed me. This is the last straw." She turned, grabbed her purse, and walked out without a goodbye. The door clicked shut, and with it, a lifetime of conditional love. That night, Lena wrote Noah a letter. She poured her heart onto the page, folded it neatly, and walked it to the post office. She had no idea if he still lived at that address, no idea if he'd even read it, but it was all she could do. A whisper in the dark. Somewhere, she hoped, silence would break, and fate would listen. 6 months later, Lena stood outside a glass skyscraper in the city's financial district, her hands shaking as she clutched a portfolio of her design sketches. The company, Archer and Rowe Developments, had posted an opening for junior interior designers, and despite her fading confidence and swelling belly, she applied. The receptionist had told her to come for the grand opening of their new showroom as part of a community hiring event. Lena didn't expect to get the job. She just needed to try. As she stepped through the glass doors, marble floors gleamed beneath her sneakers. Velvet ropes guided guests through the showroom. High ceilings, brass fixtures, artfully placed lighting. It was a different world. She wandered, awed, quietly taking notes in her head. And then her breath caught. Across the room, above the main fireplace, was a massive framed photo. A man in a dark suit stood with his hands tucked casually into his pockets, smirking slightly, eyes calm, jaw sharp. Her heart skipped. It was Noah, frozen, polished, powerful. She moved closer, reading the plaque beneath. Noah Alistair Rowe, co-CEO, Archer and Rowe Developments. Her stomach flipped. It didn't make sense. Noah was a plumber, a quiet, sweet tool belt and coffee guy. He lived in a small apartment, drove a rusty truck, and joked about clogged drains. But now, here he was, towering over a room full of million-dollar architecture like he owned it. Because he did. She stumbled backward into a leather chair, clutching the arms. Memories raced, his soft eyes, his hands always just a little too steady. His strange silences whenever she asked about his past. "Still figuring it out," he'd said. But he wasn't figuring anything out. He'd already known exactly who he was. Someone tapped her shoulder. A woman in heels and a fitted blazer smiled. "You okay?" Lena nodded slowly. "Yes, this place is incredible." The woman beamed. "Thank you. Mr. Rowe insisted the showroom reflect warm luxury. He's a stickler for detail." Lena's voice barely escaped her throat. "Do you see him often?" "All the time," the woman laughed. But before she could finish, a door opened across the room, and Noah walked in. Not with a tool belt, not with grease-stained jeans, but in a tailored suit, flanked by 2 executives. He didn't see her. He was too focused, too composed. And Lena, sitting alone with a baby growing inside her, and 1,000 memories suddenly reframed, didn't know whether to run or scream or cry. Because the man she loved hadn't lied. He just hadn't said the most important truth. And now, everything had changed. Lena didn't confront him. She couldn't. Not there. Not in a room full of men in suits and women in heels and laughter that felt too expensive for her shoes. Instead, she slipped out the side exit, the air outside suddenly heavier than before. Her hands trembled as she reached for the letter she'd sent him months ago, the one he never answered. Had he read it? Did he ignore it? Or worse, had he known all along and chosen silence? That night, back in her tiny apartment, Lena stared at the framed sonogram she kept beside her bed. "He's not just a plumber," she whispered to the photo. "He's a billionaire who vanished when we needed him." Her voice cracked, but no tears came. She had cried enough. Instead, she printed a resignation email to the bakery and started updating her portfolio. If the world was going to keep spinning, she would not let it do so without her fighting back. 2 days later, Lena showed up at the Archer and Row building again. Not for a job interview, but to leave her updated design proposal with HR. She didn't ask to see Noah, she simply dropped it off and turned to leave. But as she stepped into the marble lobby, she looked up. And on the mezzanine level, behind a wall of glass, Noah stood. Alone. He was watching her. He hadn't moved since she walked in. For 1 second, their eyes met. The weight of 6 months pressed between the glass. Noah's face was unreadable. Shock, regret, hope. She didn't wait to find out. She turned away. But as she pushed the door open, a voice echoed behind her. "Wait." Her feet froze. She turned slowly. Noah was walking fast, having come down the stairs. His eyes searched hers with urgency and something close to guilt. "Lena," he said breathlessly, "you came." She held her ground. "For the job, not for you." He nodded, hurt flickering across his face. "I read your letter 12 times. I just didn't know what to say." "How about the truth?" she snapped. "Or was that too beneath your corporate schedule?" "I wanted to tell you," he said, stepping closer. "But when I met you, I wanted someone to love me without the name, the company, the noise. You gave me that. You saw me. And then you disappeared," she whispered, her voice cracking. "When I needed you most, you vanished like you never existed. I begged the sky for a sign, Noah. I begged." His expression softened. "You think I didn't miss you? I went to the bakery every night hoping you'd still be there. But I was afraid. Afraid you'd hate me for hiding who I was. Afraid you'd think it was all a lie." She looked down at her swollen belly. "And now?" "Now," he whispered, stepping forward, slowly raising his hand toward her stomach. "Now I realize what I lost, trying to protect what wasn't even real." But Lena stepped back, not out of anger, but because pain leaves bruises no apology can erase in a moment, and walls of glass, even when shattered, still cut deep. Martha didn't knock when she entered Lena's apartment. She never did. The latch had long been broken, just like their conversations. Lena was out for a prenatal checkup, and Martha, irritated by silence, walked in anyway, muttering about cleaning up the disaster my daughter calls a home. She moved around like she owned the place, picking up a dish here, brushing off crumbs there, until her foot caught the corner of a loose floorboard. It creaked. She paused, curious. With a tug, she lifted the warped wood and saw a small metal box beneath it. Old, dusty, forgotten. Her name was on a tag tied with a faded ribbon. For Martha, in case I never return. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside were a stack of letters. And a red leather diary. The handwriting was unmistakable. Alistair Vaughn, Noah's father. The man Martha once worked for. Long ago, when she was still a maid in the Vaughn estate. Back before Lena was even born. She remembered the man well. Handsome, powerful, kind, too kind, especially to her. She remembered how his wife had been sick, how the mansion had been heavy with silence and flowers and tension. She remembered the nights he came home late and drunk and grieving. She remembered his eyes on her in the kitchen. She remembered the mistake. She had burned the memory years ago. Or so she thought. The letters told a different story. A story of longing, of guilt, of a woman who'd once been more than a maid. A woman who'd left in shame when the wife found out. A woman who'd taken a payout and disappeared into a small town with a child. A child was born 9 months later. A child named Lena. The diary fell from her hand. Her knees buckled. It couldn't be. But the math, the letters, the handwriting, It all added up. Lena was not just some foolish girl who fell for a man above her status. She was blood. She was Vaughn. She was family to Noah. But if Lena found out, if the world found out, it would ruin everything Martha had built. The web of lies, the bitterness she justified, the pride she clung to, it would all collapse. She grabbed the letters, the diary, the box, shoved it into her purse and left the apartment in a rush. Later that night, she sat in her kitchen, vodka in hand, eyes red and hollow. Because the truth didn't just change everything. It made her the villain in the story she thought she controlled. Lena was folding baby clothes when the knock came. 3 soft raps, almost hesitant. She opened the door and froze. It wasn't Noah. It was her mother. Martha looked older, not tired, wrecked. Her mascara had smudged, her voice cracked on the first word. "I need to talk to you." Lena didn't want to let her in, but something in her mother's eyes, something unsteady, almost afraid, made her step aside. Martha sat on the couch, clutching her purse like it was her last lifeline. "You were right," she said. "About everything. About Noah. About me." Lena said nothing. Martha reached into her bag and pulled out a bundle of aged letters, bound in ribbon, and a diary. "This," she said softly, "belonged to Alistair Vaughn." The name made Lena blink. "Noah's father?" "Yes," Martha whispered. "And once, my employer." Slowly, with trembling fingers, she opened the diary, flipped to a page halfway through, and handed it to Lena. The entry was dated 30 years ago. It spoke of a woman, a maid, Martha, and a night neither of them spoke about again. A child, a pregnancy, a silent deal. Lena read the page once, then again, her hands going cold. "You're saying he was my father?" "Yes," Martha said. "You and Noah. You're not just lovers, you're—" But before she could finish, Lena stood up, her breath shallow. "No, no, 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 that's not possible. He's not your brother," Martha rushed. "Not fully. Alistair had Noah with his wife. He had you with me. You're half-siblings. But you didn't know." Lena stumbled back, bile rising in her throat. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because if you go any further, if you marry him, have his child—" "I already am having his child," Lena snapped. "You're months too late." Martha closed her eyes. "I never meant for this. I tried to bury it. But when I saw the letters again, I couldn't live with the lie anymore." "You already did," Lena whispered, tears forming. "For years." The door burst open behind them. Noah. He was panting, hair tousled, tie undone. "Lena," he saw the diary in her hands, the tears in her eyes, and the woman he'd only met once standing like a ghost in his past. "She knows," Martha said, her voice hollow. "I told her." He looked at Lena. "You read it?" She nodded. Every word. Silence stretched. Then Lena spoke again. "Tell me it doesn't change anything. Please." Noah stepped forward, voice low. "It changes everything, but not what I feel for you. We share blood," she said. "Do we share a future?" He didn't flinch. "We're not bound by titles or the mistakes of parents. We're bound by choice, and I choose you. Always." But in that moment, Lena didn't answer. Because love, true love, must sometimes stand still while the heart rewrites its entire history. Lena didn't sleep that night. She sat by the window with the diary on her lap, Noah's words echoing in her head. "I choose you. Always." But could love override blood? Could 2 lives forged from different mothers and the same father still find peace in each other? Dawn came gray and cold. When the first light touched the floor, she reached for her phone and sent one message. "Meet me at the cemetery, noon." Noah arrived first. He stood beneath the old willow near Alistair Vaughn's grave, his coat dusted with frost, his eyes searching. When Lena appeared, he didn't speak. He just waited. She stepped toward the stone, fingers brushing over her father's engraved name. "He wrote about me," she said. "He said he hoped I'd never hate him, that he loved me, even if he couldn't claim me." Noah exhaled, a breath he'd held for hours. "I didn't know he wrote that." "He wrote about you too," she added. "How proud he was. But he never thought we'd find each other." She turned to Noah. "But we did." For a long time, they said nothing. The dead didn't speak. The living could barely. "So now what?" Noah asked. Do we go our separate ways? Lena's hands curled around her stomach. We share blood, but we didn't grow up as siblings. We didn't know. That's true, he said, but now we do. And I still love you, she whispered, even more painfully than before. He stepped closer. Then let's stop being afraid of what we didn't cause. We didn't choose how we were born, but we can choose how we live. Lena blinked back tears. The world won't understand. Let them not, he said firmly. They didn't live our nights. They didn't hold your hand when the bakery flooded or feel their soul split the night you let go of mine. She gave a broken smile. So what are we, Noah? He reached out, took her hand, and placed it over his heart. We're not siblings. We're survivors. Survivors of lies, of silence. And if you let me, Lena, I'll spend the rest of my life not being your brother. Just the man who loves you, as the father of your child, as the man you healed, and as the partner you choose. She stood in that moment, held by snowlight, knowing she could walk away and let the world remain tidy. Or she could stay, and begin again on messy, human, extraordinary terms. Lena looked down at the name carved into stone, then at the man standing beside her, then finally at her own heart. And she whispered, Then let's live. Not for them, for us. The chapel wasn't grand, just a quiet white building nestled in the hills behind the city where no cameras waited and no guests were invited. Lena walked in slowly, her hands resting over the child growing inside her. She wore no veil, only a pale blue dress that caught the morning light. Noah stood at the front, alone, no best man, no tuxedo, just him in a white shirt and an unspoken promise. He turned when he heard her steps. Their eyes met. No words, just breath and memory and 1,000 unspoken apologies. Are you sure? She asked, voice barely a whisper. Even now, with all the names and history and ghosts? Especially now, he said. Because this time, we start with no lies between us. The pastor said nothing at first. He simply nodded and stepped back as if understanding that the vows spoken next needed no formal audience. Noah reached into his pocket, pulled out a small velvet box, and opened it slowly. Inside was not a diamond, but a simple silver band. This was my mother's, he said. She wore it when the world looked down on her. I want you to wear it when the world looks at you and realizes who you are. Lena took the ring, her eyes filling. Who am I, Noah? He stepped closer, placed her hand against his chest. You're not just the girl the world forgot. You're the woman who saw through me when I was hiding. You're the mother of my child, the sister I never knew, but the soul I always loved. And you are, before anything else, my home. She slipped the ring on herself. And you, she said, are the man I thought I lost. The stranger who was never a stranger. The lie I feared and the truth I chose. They haven't kissed yet. Not until the sun moved past the window and lit the cross behind them, washing the chapel in soft gold. When they finally leaned into each other, it wasn't passion that spoke. It was something quieter, deeper, a kind of love born not out of perfection, but out of imperfection endured together. Later, as they stood outside, arms wrapped, Lena whispered, Do you think people will forgive us? Noah looked down at her. We didn't ask them to. She smiled. And your company? Still mine, he said. But now, it's ours. She looked out across the hills, wind brushing her face, the child inside her kicking gently. What should we name him? Let's name him something strong, Noah said. Something that can carry the weight of the truth, she nodded. Then let's name him Honor. And just like that, the past did not vanish. It folded gently into the pages of something new. Somewhere in the quiet hills beyond the city, a man stood beside a woman who had taught him what strength really looked like. They were not perfect. They were not untouched by pain or lies or the deep bruises of betrayal, but they had chosen each other after all the masks fell, and that choice made them freer than any inheritance or title ever could. In a world obsessed with bloodlines, they rewrote theirs. In a world obsessed with power, they chose grace. So, the next time you see a woman in a thrifted dress holding her head high, don't ask what she has. Ask what she's survived. And when you hear the name Lena Vaughn Rowe, remember, she was never the forgotten one. She was the storm they didn't see coming, and the crown they never deserved.